People's Revolutionary Armed Forces have, as of 3 p.m. today, established a revolutionary military council. Anyone who seeks to demonstrate or disturb the peace will be shot.
United States paratroopers have invaded Grenada with helicopter gunships. Our armed forces are engaging them in fierce battle. All Grenadians report immediately to our respective militia bases. All doctors, nurses, and medics report to the hospital immediately. The Grenadian people are asked to block all roads and obstruct the enemy's progress. United States paratroopers have invaded Grenada with helicopter gunships.
Oppressing man, hear what I say, hit the gun.
Military forces from neighboring Caribbean nations and the United States have arrived in Grenada to protect lives and restore order.
Tell Mr. Reagan all Grenadians are happy to know that he took this step in time to save our life, and may God bless him.
The presentation you are about to see is an attempt to honor the sacrifices of those who participated in Operation Urgent Fury, and to be of comfort to our Gold Star families who continue to mourn the loss of our fallen heroes. It is also meant as an encouragement to veterans of the operation to return to Grenada and see with their own eyes what has become of things there. As the Hollywood production Tropic Thunder is a movie about making a war movie, one of my favorites by the way, this is a documentary about making a Cold War documentary. The decision to return to Grenada in October of 2018 was hastily made and poorly executed. Much of the production equipment arrived shortly before departure and had never been used before. Oftentimes equipment was used improperly once we were there. This all sounds very familiar to the veteran of Operation Urgent Fury. Nonetheless, mission was accomplished. This presentation will be broken up into 4 segments for ease of viewing, and we hope you will enjoy it.
Here we are. It's a lot nicer around than it was 35 years ago. And she gets to see the Spice Island for the first time. And this is what Green Ramp looks like from Miami. Wow. I believe this is happening. From the airport terminal a little earlier, and I could smell the JP-4s and hear the engines. Stuff just don't leave here.
And here we go. The flight out of Miami doesn't take a whole lot of time to get to Grenada from Miami. It seems like. Certainly much shorter than getting there from Fort Bragg. And then I looked out the window and saw that island for the first time in forever, and man, you just get goosebumps. It's a beautiful approach. You know, you want to be sitting on the port side of the aircraft, and you want to be looking out one of the windows. So as we came in and made that wonderful landing, I just let the camera capture some pan shots of the runway. I know that every veteran watching this has already picked out spots of interest, and they're seeing for the first time in forever probably. So I just kept that camera rolling. And for most people, they think it's a little cheesy, but we're not most people.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's our pleasure to welcome you to Grenada, where the local time is 2:13 p.m. Please remain seated with your seatbelt securely fastened and carry out items stowed until the aircraft is parked at the gate and the seatbelt sign is turned off. This caution will not need to overhead bin if items may have shifted during landing. Sure to check your seat pockets for any personal articles you may have left in flight. American Airlines and One World Alliance would like to thank you for flying with us today. Look forward to seeing you on our future American Airlines flight. Safe travels wherever your next flight may take you.
And here you see, as the aircraft turns, you see the campus of St. George's University. Still down at the end of the runway, but slightly shifted more toward the water. There's our hill, Alcatraz Hill. Where we were at before we left, night before we left. It's now a parking lot for St. George's University.
Wow.
It's hard to describe the feelings that I felt as I stepped off that plane, but among them was a great sense of accomplishment, having finally returned. About 3 minutes from the airport, you find the Point Salines Hotel, which is where Lisa and I are staying. More about the hotel later, but it's about 150 meters from my fighting position on October 25th. Shortly after we arrived and dropped off our gear, we were picked up by a Grenadian friend of mine who I've known for a number of years, originally from Great Britain, and as an Englishman, he knows what the first priority should be for any weary traveler arriving on the island. So he took us to a great little spot in True Blue, a microbrewery, and I've got to say, heck of a change from 35 years ago. What a wonderful place. And the students from St. George's University there, and there were also some Gold Star family members who were sitting at the bar as well. We had a nice little visit, talked about a lot of things. Both of the individuals who were part of the Gold Star family were military veterans themselves. I can't really talk much about my friend. He's lived kind of a secretive life. He was on the island during the years of the Revolution. He can tell you a lot of stories. There's a lot of stories he can't. He was my welcoming committee, and Lisa and I enjoyed his company very much. And I believe he had a little agenda He wanted to be sure to try to get us to the beach for the sundown. So as we headed out, after a couple of refreshments, we headed and got caught in the traffic at the sugar mill. Yes, this is the sugar mill area. More about this later. Sneaky Pete just got us around through into the Grand Anse area. We passed by one of their favorite places. You know, Grenadians love to point out about American fast food, but here we are in the Grand Anse area, and as you can see, they've got a Pizza Hut and a KFC, and let me tell you, those places stay quite busy. So it's not just the Americans who love the fast food. Trust me on that.
See, Reagan came in and fixed the roads.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, I certainly remember the roads when, you know, there was more pothole than road.
Yeah.
Strong.
Oh.
I shipped a car out here, which was out here a year before I got to drive it, and the brakes had kind of gone a bit leaky in between. And so umbrellas is there,
Here we are on Grand Anse Beach on the evening of the 24th of October 2018. Wish we had gotten down here sooner. What a beautiful place. He had our itinerary all laid out. After the beach, we pulled into a nice little spot, Grill Masters. You can get all kinds of everything there. Night before Thanksgiving Day, and people are getting into a festive mood. And it was here at Grill Masters where I made my very first appearance in Clark's Court. Oh, Sneaky Pete was waiting for this. I can tell you this, once you've appeared before the judge in Clark's Court, your life will never be the same. Wow. I was tired, but after my appearance in Clark's Court, I was re-energized. After that, Lisa and I headed back to the Point Salines Hotel. We enjoyed our evening with Sneaky Pete, and then we had to head on back to the Point Salines Hotel so that we could get settled in, hopefully for some rest, because the next day was going to be a long and important day. We really, really needed our rest. Here we are on the morning of October 25th, 2018, heading to sites of historic significance on the battlefield. On the 30th anniversary of the Liberation, Patrick O'Kelly returned to Grenada with a camera to do his walkthrough of the battlefield, and I found it to be highly inspirational. I thought to myself, hey, I can do this. Joe Muccia, as most of you already well know, is a highly accomplished and knowledgeable military historian. Probably the greatest military historian of our lifetime, really. It is truly a great blessing to be accompanied by both of these men for my return to the battlefield. It doesn't get any better than this.
Well, Harry pointed to the hill where he thinks he lost his legs. So
Did you guys go there yesterday?
Well, we drove by and he pointed at it. Hey, that's my hill. It was funny, yesterday we were in the mall, and him and his wife were looking at these paintings. And there's one painting, it's of Moulin Rouge, right?
Right.
And Harry goes, hey, he's talking to the lady, he goes, hey, that looks like the hill where I lost my legs, where I was shot. And she started laughing, and he goes, no, seriously, that's the hill where I lost my legs, and he got shot. quite know how to react to that.
So the turn to get to the Lucas Memorial is going to be coming up on your left. So we walked back. I went there with Ann Lucas and Paula Lucas, Keith's widow and daughter, yesterday.
Wow.
That building right there, the pink one, that's Leo. The crash site's actually on his property.
Yeah.
And we walked all over his property. They got permission to go up there whenever they want. If you go down this road, no, this road, sorry. That one, right there. Where the brewery is, make the left there, go up, you can drive right up to where the memorial is.
Wow, okay.
As you will see throughout this presentation, I am plagued with sound issues. I used all the magic at my disposal in post-production. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't.
Scattered around.
Yeah, now, of course, I recognized on the road in, I'm going, is this Dusty Highway? And it says, no, Dusty Highway's over there.
It's parallel to this.
Is it over there or over there?
Yeah,
It's over there.
Okay, yeah.
That's where we were yesterday. That's where Juliet 5 was ambushed.
Right.
There's a lumber distributor over there. It's right next to where the Jeep was ambushed. It's right over there. But you can't really see it. All this was not, this was not built up, so they could see the drive-in.
You want to tell where Harry's hill is? See the small hill in front of that hill?
Yeah.
Harry swears to God that's where he lost his legs.
Okay.
Because he was talking about how they went up these roads and everything else.
Yeah.
Oh, you would know better than we would.
Yeah. Well, he knows a lot better than us, but it's also the memory of a guy who got his legs blown off. So
Right.
it's probably more accurate than all of us, though, because all of us, our company was on top of that ridge, Baton Rouge, working our way to Grenada. And so they were a little bit below us. There was a lot of people below us, like the CSC gun jeeps. And remember, I always said I never knew the 505th was there? That's because they were always on the fringes and I never saw them.
Yeah, as you guys were up in the hill, the second of the 505 was moving towards Frequente to get to see the weapons warehouse.
Yeah, I never.
That was funny with Ollie. I know you guys were getting into it, but that picture of you standing on a green ramp and Ollie's behind you.
Yeah. But again, I said, in this picture, there's no fuzzy-headed helmets.
And then in the back is fuzzy-headed helmets, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I never saw the fuzzy-headed helmets.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the compound right here. We'll see.
Yeah, it's the Cuban compound right here. It's Little Havana.
That's the ridge line where Alpha Company was in. CSC was over here, and Bravo Company was over here.
And there's where Pat's Perch was. Right?
The White House. And it's still white.
Here's the airfield. Here's the retaining pond. So,
Yeah, we were there.
Hey, you want to go up to the Cuban Memorial first? Not necessarily Memorial, but that ridge line? You start from there?
That area right there was B Company 1st Ranger Battalion's assembly area.
Up to, there's a memorial up there. Is that it? Yeah, go up there.
Yeah, for 320th set up after they were moved back across the runway. They originally across the runway on that little stretch of land, and they had to shut down. They had to shut down aircraft operations every time they fired. So they said, let's move them across the runway so we can keep the airfield in operation. So you had 319th and 320th here when the Calvini air assault went. This is where they were firing over toward that peninsula.
I remember that night listening to them rounds going overhead, heading that way.
So the Cubans they put a bunch of rocks on the side of that hill. It's CMPS 26, which is the date of the Cuban Revolution. Mm-hmm. So it's always 26. It's on the side of that hill. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple of DOD photographs of it. I guess that was their little message.
Yeah, I know the first place there to be the second one, but there was a third place, and they're talking about golf land. I don't know where that was. Yeah, I know we landed at a golf course to do an air bowl, but I don't think that's.
I thought it was east of the airfield.
Yeah, I don't know where it is. I've been
That's a little bit.
Oh, look, there's doing something here. What do you know? Yeah.
Are you doing Thanksgiving celebration tonight? Oh, fantastic.
That might be Wednesday day.
Really? Holy cow, this will be interesting.
Yes. I'll stay.
Yeah. No, I may go over there.
So this is where we parked yesterday and went out over in this little
Holy shit, I may go over there.
land here to the airfield.
As we arrived to the portion of the battlefield adjacent to the runway, we ran into some Cuban nationals who were having their own memorial ceremony. This was most unexpected.
Okay. But were they here that day?
Who's that?
35 years ago. Were they here 35 years ago?
No.
Okay.
These are new people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Are they the families of the people?
No, they are workers, collaborators. They are doctors.
We approached this group in a spirit of friendship and goodwill, but it was less than received. Maybe it was that their watchers were watching as always.
No, if there was any soldiers here that day, I would like to meet them and shake their hand.
Yeah.
No, really, I'd like to shake their hand.
Can't have Los Cubanos fraternizing with the Yankees, even after 35 years.
Yeah. So the final phase of the monument was finished last year.
I know, it wasn't here. I was here 5 years ago.
The Cuban Memorial is a recently built monument, and I took the opportunity to go see what it was all about.
Thank you.
I will say to this day, and I will
It's
say
important to remember when planning your return to Grenada that the terrain hasn't changed at all since you've left, but you have. So, keep in mind that you need some good foot gear, and you got to keep in mind that from time to time you're going to do something that you did a lot of the last time you were there, and you got to be ready for it.
You probably think we're pretty crazy, don't you?
Seems difficult to believe that I would subject my wonderful Navy girl to this kind of a harsh environment, but she wanted it. She wanted to see what it was all about.
yes.
Usually when I kind of traipse around this kind of crap, I've got
Right. Well, some traditions never change.
You all right?
Yeah.
It's a hell of a view, ain't it? Lot better than sitting up there with all that shit. Man, I'm like the nettle collector.
Oh yeah, I got all sorts of sand spurs going around. Hey, it was dead. Beside where she
Well, that's not even working right. This is typical Operation Urgent Fury stuff. Brand new equipment.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to explain to everybody. And Seeger, we were talking about it, and I said, you guys were over towards the saddle and up on that hill. And he goes, yeah. Everybody seems to think like the B Company was all in this one little compact area, and they're not. They were spread all along the saddle. So when they came in, they took over for most of B Company 1st Ranger Battalion. So they basically fell in on all their positions. So that's where 3rd Platoon B Company was, where Dave Mangus and all them boys were over in that area towards the saddle where Seeger and Ritz got shot up.
What is throwing everybody off? One, the vegetation. You could see the Cuban compound from here easily. But 2, that road, it wasn't there.
Yeah.
So it was one giant bowl, but now there's a road in the middle of the bowl and it throws everybody off.
Yeah.
He threw me off. Because when he initially said, over here, I said, nah, you went over here, that's too far.
Yeah. So this access road coming off the runway right there and that little trail, that's where B Company's assembly area was, 1st Battalion. So they were supposed to all link up there and then head up to Goat Hill. So when they finally got up to that area and they crested it, Kevin Evans was a Ranger rifleman. He was running the point with Darren McMahon, who was the squad leader right behind him. And as soon as they crested it, a Cuban fired off a couple of rounds. One of them grazed Kevin in the hand, and D-Mac fired him up. And he had tracers, first few rounds in his rifle tracers. And he watched one round punch through the Cuban's back and then hit something and then go out in a crazy angle. And Chris Marks was a few steps behind him. You can see the whole thing going down. He watched the tracer go in and then like shoot up into the sky, like it hit a bone or something and kind of redirected it. But that was like the initial engagement for those guys over in that area. But there had been, the 1st Platoon had landed 15, 20 minutes before everybody else. They were jumped in with the 1st Battalion TOC and 1st Platoon B Company. And I was just telling Pat as we were coming down, Brian Staggs was a platoon sergeant for the 1st Platoon B Company. And they were coming down, and there was a Cuban on the top of the tower shooting at him. And Staggsy had an MP5, and he was trying to get it out from his harness. And no sooner did he clear it from his harness and get ready to engage, and he said, I was really at the end of the 9mm range to get that guy. Spectre blew the top of the tower. So, I mean, these are all these little small unit. There's a lot of small unit actions that occurred up in the tower area. The Cubans had a lot of trenches. Spectre was clearing that out. One of the fisters, a guy named Tracy Hickman, was clearing a bunch of the Cubans out. He ended up taking like 9 prisoners. But the 1st Sergeant from B Company got credit for him, but they were Tracy Hickman's prisoners. And it was funny because they were trying to fight for them to get the CIB because they did a lot of infantry actions. And at the end of the day, it was, no, you're a fister. You're not getting the CIB.
Yeah, so, it is.
So yeah, lots of intense small unit actions all up and down here. A lot of guys told me about rucks busting as they hit the runway, 2 quart canteens exploding all over the place.
Right about there is where Trujillo landed, from what the description sounded like.
Yeah. There's a picture of on the opposite side of the tarmac. There's an access road that comes down from the tower, and there's a picture of some of the 1st Battalion officers. And one of them is a guy named Henry Ike Eisenbarth, and he was the FSO for 1st Battalion. And he was carrying 2 77s with crypto gear. And when he hit the run, 277. When his ruck hit the runway, both radios went Tango uniform, and he was able to cobble together one working radio out of the two to get in touch with Spectre and start controlling the airstrikes all up in these
21 knot winds and a concrete drop zone don't play.
Got it. Guys were getting oscillated and landing on their sides in there. Danny Keys was a rifleman in 1st Platoon B Company. He had the handguards blown completely off his rifle and smashed, so he had to duct tape them back onto his rifle.
Remember the 182nd guy that did jump? His rifle was so bent, the bullets were shooting there and the bullets are going over there.
Mike Farmer, a guy from Trujillo's unit, when he landed, bent the barrel of his 16 like completely, almost like at a 90-degree angle.
The 5 years ago, I did a lot of trying to match stuff up.
But it's tougher now because the terrain and all the buildings have changed. There's so much buildup. The sight lines are different.
After leaving the terminal area, we moved on down to Goat Hill, and as you can see, the goats are still there. What is not here, however, is the video that I shot at Goat Hill with the narration of the battle. This came about due to a couple of very crucial rookie mistakes that took place in the chaos that descended after we tried to order lunch at a local restaurant on Thanksgiving Day, and most of the staff did not show up to work that day. In the rush to get to St. George's University on time later that evening, a memory chip for one of the cameras was left behind at the hotel room. My work at the memorial ceremony was supposed to have been done with 2 cameras, but we only had 1 memory chip, and that 1 memory chip was crowded. And thus, if I was going to capture the memorial service with the 1 camera that I did have, I had to make space on that chip, and the Battle of Goat Hill had to be deleted. I am hoping that the veterans of the Battle of Goat Hill will now feel extra motivated to get on down there with a camera and tell the story from their perspective. When we got onto the portion of Goat Hill where anti-aircraft guns had been placed, we made some new friends. We met a gentleman who is in the process of building a house on the very site where one of the anti-aircraft guns had been placed. It was a very touching moment when this gentleman thanked us for our participation in the Liberation of Grenada. He said he wouldn't have a family had we not come there and did what we did. It was quite a humbling experience for me, and I can't help but wonder how many Grenadians would tell us the same thing.
It was right about here. That was right here.
He said that when we come back in 5 years, that his house will be finished and we need to stop by and grab a beer. I think I'm going to take you up.
Nice meeting you guys. You guys came at the right time.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Trust me.
Let's not ride. Let's walk.
Trust me, a couple of years from now, you can always visit me.
5 years from now.
Stop, you have some beers.
All right.
Absolutely. I will see you.
I expect to see that picture framed.
As we take off walking along the ridgeline in Calliste, Elvis and Lisa Kay ride along behind in the support vehicle. Lisa Kay is working that camera, and I find that the tandem camera team effort that really was not even directed. She just instinctively knew that she had a camera, she was seeing something beautiful, something important, and she needed to be using the camera. So this thing just came together. So many errors were made. If you don't have a camera pointed at a cameraman who's trying to do his thing, I mean, how else are you going to do a documentary about a documentary? Many errors were made, but because there were 2 cameras in operation, usually whatever got missed got caught some way, somehow, as we saw when it came to the case of Goat Hill.
The actual progression of events. Here's the deal. Because I was with Jacoby, I got to bounce the entire perimeter several times.
Yeah.
And the main thing I was looking for was water. We didn't have any water. And I was like, hey man, got some water? Hey man, got some water? And I bumped into a bunch of rangers, snipers, in position around the top of this hill. And they gave me some water. But this was, I always tell everybody, the first time I ever got shot at by an enemy was right around the corner here. It was me, Jacoby, somebody else. I don't know who. It might have been Gallardo, because Gallardo was Nicholson's RTO.
Yep.
So whoever the heck Jacoby's RTO was, and an officer, but not Nicholson, some other platoon leader, we were walking up this trail to move to this little high ground, because there was sandbags up here, but not an AA gun, just sandbags right here, and it's looking down into the valley, and there was some rangers up there. But, well, as we came up this road, this bunch of trees fucking got ambushed, and somebody fired full automatic at us. And I'm telling you, it was as close as those trees. So it's by sheer luck and grace of God that every bullet missed us.
It's all. I think it had more to do with the weapon.
The family's not doing too well. They're too good. They're doing good. They got a bunch of cars. All right, let me. Hey, it's me again.
You again?
Can I come on your porch again?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Somebody new showed up. Yeah.
Good morning.
Okay. All right, well, first off, let me orient you to the picture, and it'll give you a good idea.
God, dang it.
Look at this. All right.
Yeah.
This is the porch. Now, what's missing? What's no longer there? That was the building that had all the Cuban bodies in it. All right, right about where the yellow roof building is, right around there is where that building was, but they put in a road. That road wasn't there before. And so they knocked down that building, I guess. Well, that, and it was covered in holes. I might as well knock it down. These buildings, some are original, because they're right there.
Yeah.
As you can see, it's a lot less grown up back then. It was cleared out. Where Ritz was killed was along that hill right there. On this picture, it's along this hill right here. What I saw in the morning was tracers coming up this way. And so all the fighting for B Company, where they had all the action, Gwynn was wounded, and Ritz was killed, was all on that hill right there. My sniper shots were at this building way over here, and the A7 strikes came right down the line.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we had machine gunners down here, and like, so this was Nicholson's CP, machine gunners here.
I was looking up at that lead A7 when it opened up.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Sergeant Ron Johnson and Specialist Gary Genovese were a tandem ride bike team from B Company 1st Ranger Battalion, and they went down one of these paths right here into the camp and were actually shot off their bike. Their rifles were on the handlebar mounts, so as they got shot off the bike, they crawled into the bushes for cover, and they didn't have their rifles, so they didn't know if they were going to make it in their last stand, so they took grenades out of their LBE and got ready to defend themselves. But yeah, that happened right over in this area. It's just inside that area right there where the camp starts to begin.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were pushing patrols. Dave Bufflemeyer and Brian Duffy both actually went into the compound and were actually climbed up on the roof of one of the buildings to direct fire. Duffy had an M14, a sniper system, an M21 sniper system, and Buffy had his machine gun and M60. So they had plenty of firepower, plenty of range to engage everything within the compound. But they were eventually pulled back from the airfield once Genovese and Ron Johnson were rescued. And then it was start bringing Inspector again to start getting these guys to surrender.
Yeah.
Again, that was early in the morning of the 25th. They were really, the bike patrol was kind of like one of those feeling out processes. They were supposed to go to a little crossroads and kind of hold it. They were trying to expand the airhead a little bit and gauge the strength of the Cubans in the compound, and so that's how they got to where they were. So the Rangers had gun jeeps in this area as well, and they almost got smoked by Spectre. Spectre thought they were an enemy position, and a Ranger Fister named Charlie Ball got on the radio, heard Spectre calling out their grids, got on the radio and said, "Hey, check fire, we got friendlies in that area." And they had already started firing. 105 banged into the area like up in front, just out of range, and they thought they were going to get wiped completely off the map. And Charlie called up on the Fister freaks and said, "Hey, check fire, we got friendlies in that area." So he averted a really bad friendly fire incident because it was two jeeps, two jeep teams together. One of them with Bobby Lane. He retired. He's Command Sergeant Major Bobby Lane, Ranger legend. He's Ranger Hall of Fame. Was with the jeep team commanders. That field was a baseball field. The students used to play ball against the Cuban workers on that. There's a baseball field actually. They turned it into a.
And there was a trench in that field. And you heard me say about how the first thing I thought was a goat flying in the air, but it was Cubans in trenches. I didn't know that till later.
Oh, I love this little setup right here. How you doing, young man? Good to see you. Happy Thanksgiving Day.
Oh yeah, happy Thanksgiving, pal.
And look at the dog. Lots of dogs up in here about 35 years ago.
Yeah.
Hey, Tom.
Yeah, we were on your ridge here 35 years ago fighting the war here.
Yeah, Mike's squad was penetrating the inside of the Cuban compound when the strikes were being called, and then Seeker got a call from Matt Jack saying, "Get your spot coming out of here. We're about to go."
They shoot ahead of us. And they were shooting all ahead. I think there was a woman.
Yeah, there was a female prisoner. Yeah.
And they both came over that hill. We were pursuing that guy.
This is the area that had been designated as our assembly area following the jump. Now, of course, the jump was called off at the last second, so when we piled out of that aircraft down at the end of the runway here, we ended up down in a ditch facing out. We shifted right, we shifted left, we get shifted everywhere, and we finally ended up in this area here, which was essentially our assembly area to begin with. The first time I'd ever seen a tandem ride scout bike team was on this road right here. They were coming screaming out of Calliste as fast as they could. It was a heck of a sight. And the guys from my company who asked me to retrace our steps, well, this is where the steps got started, right here. I'm sure most of you see this building and remember it well. Back in 1983, there was a road that was running off the end of the runway construction area that essentially followed what we see here of this fence line. It headed in that direction. The road leading off the end of the runway right there no longer exists, but as you will see coming up, trying to discover exactly where it was is a lot easier said than done. Well, at this point in our journey today, it's starting to get a little warm and I'm starting to get a little thirsty. And just like a true infantryman, I've not forgotten after all these years where it is that I can find some water. And after 35 years, I walk right up to the spigot. Tell me I ain't a grunt. For some reason, I keep thinking that our company command post was on the back side of this school building, but as I look at it some more, I'm just not so sure. As I back off a little bit and start to look around, it starts to seem like maybe our CP was down in this low spot over here underneath these trees. Of course, I don't think those trees were here then, but just looking at the terrain, it just made more sense that our CP would be down here. After 35 years, you know, the memory has a few lapses. Our 1st Platoon, A Company, 3rd Battalion, was strung out up this road here, headed up into Calliste. I'm just taking one last look at this place that's been in my head all these years. Who knows if I'll ever see it again. But my boys in my company wanted to see it, so here it is. Trying to remember who all was down here. I know that Private Bajoni was down here. He passed away a few years ago. I certainly wish he could see this. Somewhere along the way, Private Wendell Gunner was positioned. He and I were sent back to the CP to retrieve flak jackets and hand grenades for the platoon. That's how I got to kind of know this area a little bit, just running back and forth. As I was down at the company CP, we did have a few rounds to go overhead. Probably plunging fire coming out of Little Havana and whatnot. When you see a veteran of the 173rd Airborne Brigade from Vietnam ducking, you know it's time to do the same. And while the average viewer may find video of me walking up a road at a place they've never been before to be a little bit boring, well, for those of us who have been there before, it's anything but boring. Private John Gould was placed in this position. On the morning of the 26th, he demonstrated the futility of using a U.S. E-tool against Grenadian soil. Just wasn't getting very far fast. I knew we'd be moving soon, so I wasn't messing with all that. Now, up here on the left-hand side of the road, opposite of where you see the street sign for the road that peels off on the right. That's where Corporal Harger and I were placed on the evening of the 25th when we finally got settled in. Corporal Harger was a straight-up rifleman. I had the M16 equipped with the M203 grenade launcher, and my field of fire included that road up there on the right and anything else that passed in front of me that didn't have the proper password, except for that one trooper. Of course, the challenge was urgent. The password was Fury. Some trooper responded with a word. It was a 4-letter word. It started with the letter F, but it was not Fury. I had to stop anything that was going to come up over that hill, down that road toward us. I had to stop anything on the road, anything in my field of fire, and I was going to kill it. And as long as whatever was in my field of fire had the proper password when challenged, they could live. But then there was that one trooper. Don't know who he was, but nonetheless, I recognized the expression as genuine. I knew it was not a Caribbean islander of any kind who said the 4-letter F word, and my response, of course, was, "You may pass." Back in those days, I could see all the way down to the runway. The way the foliage was, just the way things were laid out, the lack of trees. Things were different in 1983, obviously. But during the night, I could see those star lifters coming down to the end of that runway, turning around. Some of them unloading right there, others going back down to the terminal. But all night there was a steady procession of C-141 star lifters coming into Point Salines. Nobody had to tell me that we were going to exceed the bounds of our operations order, which the only thing we were supposed to do was jump in, assemble down at the Calliste school, take up our position in the perimeter where we are now, and help, secure a perimeter for the safe evacuation of the medical students. Well, the medical students, we watched them walk out hours ago. It's nighttime now, and the star lifters are coming in, and they're unloading. I mean, just unloading. And we're going, okay, well, this thing's supposed to have been over with by now. What are we doing? It was clear that we were going to be there for a while. I had a few things on my mind as, I'm looking at these aircraft coming in, knowing that it's dark. It would be easy for somebody to low crawl in through our perimeter, somebody who knows the terrain, somebody who knows the neighborhood. They could have slipped past us with an RPG and made a real big mess of things down on the runway. So there was no way I was sleeping. We didn't sleep the night before at Fort Bragg. There was none of that. It was operations orders, draw ammo, all that, and get on the plane. But I was wide awake. So I'm staying alert, can't see much of anything. If something was coming down that road, it'd be really hard for me to see it. Very difficult. I'm just keeping my ears open, and a lot of what I'm hearing is jet engine noise from down on the runway, that kind of thing. And I got a few things on my mind. I was wondering if my mother knew where I was at. And the reason why that was important to me is because if my mother knew, then I knew that she was praying for me. And I knew that if she was praying for me, that I would have additional protection. I would have all the protection I would need. Now, I didn't know if what was going on was part of the news in the outside world yet. Little did I know that whether or not my mother knew where I was at or not, she had already said a prayer for me many years ago. You'll hear more about that coming up. My mother said a prayer for me prior to 1983 that covered me in the exact situation that I was in. And it didn't matter if my mother knew where I was at or not. God had heard that prayer. Now, the second two things that came to mind after that, two thoughts that go hand in hand. And a lot of y'all are going to think it's pretty funny for me to even be talking about it. But I'm going to go ahead and talk about it because the conclusions that I came to regarding these two thoughts shaped decades of my life that would follow. Certainly not in a good way. Not for most of my life anyway. The first of those two thoughts was, I was 18 years old, just shy of my 19th birthday. I'd only been in love one time. There was what I believed a decent chance that I would be killed. Boo-hoo. Well, I thought it was a little bit of a shame that somebody who didn't even know how to really love a woman might get shot in the chest and never learn how to. Now, the other thought that went hand in hand with that was that I had $165 left in my bank account. Now, y'all might think that that's hilarious, but let's think about it. It's 1983. I'm a private first class. It's 10 days after payday, and I've still got $165 left in my checking account. Now, that was really a major achievement. Now, I was driving a 1981 Chevy Love four-wheel drive diesel, and for $65, you could get from Fort Bragg, North Carolina, to Jacksonville, Florida, and back, all for $65. So I've got $165 in the bank. $65 goes to fuel. $100 goes to partying. You know, with that kind of money, I could have easily fell in love a second time. And trust me, I'm going to fall in love down in Jacksonville, Florida, because there ain't no falling in love in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Okay, I'm sorry. That was wrong. That was absolutely wrong. Back in 1983, Fayetteville, North Carolina was where women could be very, very choosy. And usually falling in love was for E5s and up. But a private first class in the 82nd Airborne Division driving to Jacksonville, Florida, breaking every law in that bad four-wheel drive pickup truck, riding around, saying hey to the ladies. Yes, with $100, there was a good chance that I could fall in love a second time. And it really bothered me. I'm sitting here in this fighting position, having only fallen in love once in my life, and I got $165 sitting there in my checking account. And what's somebody going to do with that money if something happens to me? They'll just go out and blow it. So I made up my mind right then and there that if I made it through Operation Urgent Fury, I got back to the United States alive, I was going to get my $165 worth. I was headed to Florida, and I'm getting my $165 worth of fun as soon as I get back. Might even fall in love. Pretty sure I'm going to get drunk. Well, quite sure. And thus I decided then and there that if I made it through this, that I was going to live every day like it was my last. Living every day like it's your last, that can go one of two ways. A young man is going to live every day like it's his last in one particular way, whereas an older man who's living every day like it's his last might be sitting around the house creating historical videos, I guess. So the life choices that I made here on this road a long time ago had an impact on my life for decades, and it impacted the lives of others around me. There were a lot of heavenly bodies. There's also a lot of empty bottles and a lot of broken hearts. That ain't no way to go through life, but somehow I did it for a long, long time. And one day I finally came to the conclusion of the matter, and I gave all that nonsense up. And you know what God did for me? He gave me everything I ever wanted and then some. He gave me a Navy girl. Oh yeah! Navy girl, combat veteran of Operation Desert Storm. And here she is, right by my side, up on my fighting position, where she can just see where all the greatness began, where all that craziness that she fell in love with, where it all got started. Yes, it all got started in a ditch. I love you, baby. After leaving the spot where the tales of ribaldry began, we all piled up with Elvis and went in search of the site of the hasty anti-armor ambush that was executed by the men of 1st Ranger Battalion under the command of Captain John Abizade on October 25th, 1983. Anybody who happened by this scene before they got it all cleaned up saw something that they will never ever forget. Certainly that is the case with me. And certainly that would seem to lend itself to being able to easily identify this spot when we see it again, something that is so richly etched in our memories. Well, that turns out to be a lot easier said than done. The roads are different, everything's different, even the terrain's different. Now, this is the photo that is most commonly viewed of the ambush site. The same BTRs, these are the same BTRs I would dare say probably shot by the same photographer, just from a different angle looking back toward the airfield. What do you see toward the left on the horizon as you look at this photograph? Let's take a closer look. You can see that that's flat, that's wide open, that's the runway. On the horizon, on the V where those two vehicles form a V visually, up on that hill up there, I believe is that big white tank that's on the hill above the terminal area. So this is one of the photos taken by a member of my platoon, PFC Gatlin. Can't remember his first name. Different kind of film, you can see the soil looks different. But these are the same BTRs taken from a different angle. And yeah, the scene is not yet cleaned up. You can't really tell what you're looking at there. There is one thing that you can see in the photograph from this angle, and you have to, again, look up at the horizon. Okay, you see a berm. That berm, I believe, is the end of the runway build-up area that sloped down. It dropped off down to the medical campus. It dropped off down to the medical campus, which would have been toward the left half of this photo behind those trees. Would be on the opposite side of those trees in this photo. But look at the horizon over toward the right side of the photo, up in the corner, up toward the corner where you see two twigs of some growth sticking up. Look close at that second twig end. Do you see a particular man-made shape there? Well, I do. Let's take a closer look. Those are troopers from A Company coming up to our position where we're going to start laying in, overlooking Ruth Howard. This is on the morning of the 26th. And what you see up on the horizon toward where that twig is sticking up right there, you can see it clearly. That's a tail section of a C-141 Starlifter. So you can see how close to the runway these BTRs got. That it would have been a very ugly day on Point Salines for U.S. forces if those bad boys had gotten past the Rangers who were at the True Blue Medical Campus and executed that hasty ambush when they heard them coming. And they were coming up this road where you see this Jeep driving into the end of the runway. They were coming straight up this road. Look how easy that would have been, big, wide, and open. If they would have maintained the element of surprise and momentum, there's a good chance that they would have gotten away with doing some damage. Wouldn't have changed the overall outcome, but they sure would have made a mess of things.
3 BTRs were trying to do a way to stop the Americans. And
see the rise right there?
To do it.
That
yeah,
rise
see,
right
that's
there.
it. That's it. Because remember I said it was a sloping, gentle slope going to the
And as soon as they get over that, I don't know if the foliage is going to be too heavy. We might not be able to see over into the airfield, but this is where they were rested before they made their attack, before they got
Yep. Yeah, I think so. You're 100%. We may be the first one to find the spike. So I'm documenting. Anybody from this point on ever visits, they can get a general idea of what we're doing.
See, now you can't get in there because the airfield's right here.
Well, no, there's on either side. We're good until there's a fence blocking us. So where did it come out? Are you sure now? Yeah. There's the airfield right there.
Yeah, there's
This
the
is more
campus.
the orientation.
There's the campus. The boys would have come flying out of
All right.
campus. Here's
This is
That's it. That was it.
That was the
wanna
that
stop and
crest
get
right
out?
there.
Oh yeah, let's stop because I'm still confused. I still don't quite understand where they came up. Bring your pictures of the tank. I got a car coming.